Am I the bad guy for wearing a white t-shirt and gray leggings when my husband's ex-wife came over? I recently found myself in a rather uncomfortable situation that sparked a significant conversation between my husband and me. We had just gotten married, and this was our first real disagreement. My husband and I were waiting for his ex-wife to drop off their daughter, and I was dressed casually in a white t-shirt and gray leggings. My hair was in a messy bun, and I hadn't bothered with makeup. Just minutes before they arrived, my husband asked if I planned to change. I confidently told him I wasn't going to. When his ex showed up, she was dressed to the nines in a lovely summer dress, complete with heels and makeup. I could feel the tension in the air as our daughter said her goodbyes and went upstairs. After the ex left, my husband turned to me and said I had embarrassed him by looking the way I did. I was taken aback, and we ended up in a heated argument. As I reflected on the situation, it felt like my husband was comparing me to his ex, which didn't sit well with me. I couldn't help but feel like there was some sort of contest happening, and it made me question our relationship. I wanted to believe that he was over his ex and that his comments were just a misguided attempt to show me off. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was at play. I shared my thoughts with others online, and many agreed that I wasn't in the wrong. They pointed out that my husband shouldn't be comparing me to his ex at all. I also realized that I had been feeling a bit insecure about my looks, especially when I saw how put together his ex was. I wondered if my husband wanted me to dress up more to impress her, which felt strange since I thought we were just a family hanging out at home. The next day, we had a heart-to-heart conversation. My husband reassured me that he found me more attractive than his ex and preferred my curvier figure. He admitted that he was aware of how others perceived us and that he wanted to show me off. I told him that while I appreciated his compliments, what mattered most was how I felt about myself. I asked him if he preferred me to dress up or keep it simple when it was just the three of us. He said he liked the simpler look, which helped ease my mind. In the end, we agreed to communicate better and not let outside opinions affect our relationship. While I still felt a bit uneasy about the whole situation, I was relieved that we were able to talk it through and get back to a more comfortable place. It was a wake-up call for both of us, reminding me that confidence comes from within and that our relationship should be built on mutual respect and understanding, not comparisons.
I, 26F, was humiliated in front of my fiancé, 35 ma'am, by my best friend, 27F. I am not sure if I should forgive her. How should I handle this? I want to share a deeply personal experience that left me feeling humiliated and questioning my friendships. It all began with a dinner party at my home, where I invited my closest friends and my fiancé, Kyle. I've always had a small circle of friends, and for the sake of this story, I'll call them Beth, Stack, and Gwen. Among us, only Gwen is married, while the rest of us are navigating our relationships. As a woman who has struggled with my weight for most of my life, standing at 5'3" and weighing 260 pounds, I faced my fair share of challenges. Growing up, I often heard comments like, "You have such a beautiful face, if only you were smaller." This kind of body shaming took a toll on my self-esteem. In past relationships, I often felt like my partners were embarrassed to be seen with me. They wouldn't hold my hand in public or share pictures of us on social media. My experiences on dating apps were disheartening, often leading to ghosting or situations where I felt used. 3 years ago, everything changed when I met Kyle at my nephew's soccer game. He was the coach, and after the game, he approached me, mentioning a message he had sent me on a dating app. I was embarrassed, but he was charming and genuine. We exchanged numbers, and despite my insecurities, I agreed to go out with him. On our first date, I bluntly asked if he was only interested in me because of my size. To my surprise, he expressed that he was drawn to my personality and interests, not my appearance. As we continued to date, I learned more about Kyle's past. He was a widower who had lost his wife and infant son in a tragic accident years ago. Despite his heartache, he was kind, supportive, and helped me work through my insecurities. With his encouragement, I began to focus on my health and lost some weight. Our relationship blossomed, and soon we were officially a couple. My friends and family were thrilled, and Kyle's family welcomed me with open arms, except for Beth. From the beginning, Beth had her doubts about Kyle, but as time went on, she seemed to warm up to him, especially after he helped me secure a job in my field with a great salary. However, her behavior during our recent dinner party took a dark turn. That evening, everything was going smoothly until Beth, who had clearly had too much to drink, made a shocking comment. She asked me, in front of everyone, why I tolerated a picture of Kyle with his deceased wife and son. I was mortified. I explained that the picture was precious to him and I would never ask him to hide it. But then, in a moment of utter insensitivity, she brought up a painful experience from my past, one that I had never shared with Kyle. She made a degrading remark that cut deep, and I felt my heart sink. Kyle's reaction was immediate and fierce. Once they were gone, I broke down in tears, fearing that Kyle would see me differently after witnessing such humiliation. I repeatedly apologized, worried he might not want to be with me anymore. But he held me close, reassuring me that it was Beth's behavior that upset him, not my past. The next day, I decided I needed to confront Beth. I texted her, suggesting we meet to talk. I was filled with a mix of emotions: anger, hurt, and confusion. I wanted to understand why she felt it was okay to humiliate me in front of my fiancé. I also needed to decide if I could forgive her for what she had done. As I reflect on this experience, I realize that friendships can be complicated, especially when insecurities and past traumas are involved. I'm still processing everything, but I know that I deserve to be treated with respect and kindness, both by my friends and by myself. Whether I choose to forgive Beth or not, I'm grateful for Kyle's unwavering support and love. He has shown me that I am worthy of love, just as I am. I found myself in a whirlwind of emotions recently, and it all started at a brunch that was supposed to be a lighthearted gathering with friends. I was there with my fiancé, Kyle, and my best friend, Beth. Little did I know, this brunch would turn into a moment of deep betrayal and humiliation. As the mimosas flowed, Beth, in a drunken haze, made some hurtful comments that cut me to the core. She brought up Kyle's late wife and son in a rude and insensitive manner. And to make matters worse, she dredged up a personal experience from my past that I had long since moved on from. It felt like a punch to the gut, especially with my fiancé sitting right there. I was mortified. After the brunch, I confronted Beth about her behavior. She seemed embarrassed but quickly shifted the blame onto Kyle, claiming he was the reason for our friendship's downfall. It was as if she couldn't take responsibility for her actions. I walked away from that conversation feeling more hurt than ever. I had always looked up to Beth. She was my first friend and someone who had been there for me during tough times. But now, I was questioning everything. My other friends, Gwen and Stace, were caught in the middle. They agreed that Beth was in the wrong and expressed their support for my relationship with Kyle. I made it clear that while I wouldn't be upset if they chose to hang out with Beth, I didn't want to be included if she was around. It was a tough decision, but I felt it was necessary for my own well-being. As I reflected on our friendship, I began to see things more clearly. Beth had always been the type to complain about her relationships, and I started to wonder if her jealousy had been simmering beneath the surface. I had lost weight and found love, while she remained single. It was painful to realize that someone I had admired could harbor such resentment. The comments from my friends on social media helped me process my feelings. Many pointed out that true friends celebrate each other's victories, and Beth's actions were anything but supportive. I began to understand that she was never really my friend. She was using me to feel better about herself. It was a harsh truth, but one I needed to accept. In the days that followed, I received a text from Gwen. She and her partner Mike had decided to cut Beth out of their lives entirely. Mike was furious with Beth for her behavior, and Gwen apologized for even considering keeping her as a friend. This revelation was a turning point for me. I hadn't spoken to Stace since the brunch, but I hoped she would come to the same conclusion as Gwen. As I processed everything, I felt a mix of sadness and anger. I mourned the loss of the Beth I once knew, the one who had stood up for me when I was bullied as a child. It was heartbreaking to realize that the person I had once admired had changed so drastically. Ultimately, I decided that I needed to prioritize my happiness and well-being. I didn't want to keep someone in my life who had shown such cruelty. I was grateful for the support of my fiancé and my other friends, who had always been there for me without judgment. Now, as I lay in bed next to Kyle, I felt a sense of relief. I knew I was making the right choice by letting go of toxic relationships and focusing on the love and support that truly mattered. It was time to move forward, leaving behind the hurt and embracing the happiness that lay ahead.
Am I the bad guy for telling my sister not to come to my wedding if she kept bringing up her miscarriage? 3 years ago, my younger sister Jen experienced a heartbreaking miscarriage at 9 weeks. She and her partner, Scott, were understandably devastated, and I did my best to support them during that difficult time. A few months later, Scott left Jen, and she claimed it was due to the miscarriage. However, I later learned from her best friend that Jen had cheated on Scott, and when he confronted her, she used the miscarriage as an excuse. Fast forward to 9 months ago, when I got engaged and asked Jen to be my maid of honor. At our engagement party, she became inconsolable upon seeing a friend's baby, and I tried to be understanding, recognizing that she was likely imagining what family events would have been like with her own child. But after that night, things took a turn. Every time we discussed wedding plans, Jen would bring up her miscarriage, and it became increasingly difficult to navigate. For instance, when I asked her to help me pick flowers, she lost it over baby blue roses, convinced she was having a boy. During a wedding dress shopping trip, she even insisted on trying on a maternity bridesmaid dress and stuffed a cushion under it, which left me feeling like she had lost touch with reality. I suggested counseling, but she insisted that her behavior was a normal part of grieving. Things escalated when she organized my hen party but imposed a list of rules, including no discussions about pregnancy or kids and no wearing baby blue. I gently confronted her about these rules and reiterated my support, but I also made it clear that if she wanted to impose any more restrictions, she needed to discuss them with me first. The breaking point came when one of my friends announced her pregnancy. Jen called her and suggested she not attend the wedding, claiming she couldn't handle being reminded of her loss. I was furious when I found out. I told Jen that she was using her miscarriage for attention, and that if she made any more demands or comments related to it, she would be uninvited from the wedding and would no longer be my maid of honor. Since then, Jen has told everyone that I dumped her from the wedding because she was upset about her miscarriage. In retaliation, I felt compelled to clarify the truth about her breakup with Scott to our friends and family, explaining that her actions had led to her losing both him and me. I was hurt that people thought I would abandon my sister over her loss, and I felt the need to defend myself. Now I'm left feeling conflicted. I'm angry, but I also wonder if I should be more understanding. Some people have suggested that I went too far in discussing her breakup, and I can see their point. However, I also believe that Jen hasn't dealt with her grief in a healthy way, and it seems to have manifested in her behavior towards me and my wedding. As the wedding day approaches, I'm still grappling with the situation. I want to set boundaries, but I also feel a sense of loss over the relationship I once had with my sister. If she isn't there on my big day, I know I will be devastated, but I also need to protect my own happiness. Am I the bad guy for refusing to let my mother-in-law stay with us after she became homeless? I've been married to my husband for 8 years, and we have 2 young children. Throughout our marriage, my relationship with my mother-in-law has been quite strained. There have been repeated boundary violations, public conflicts, and a lack of accountability on her part that have made things difficult. Recently, I've been feeling pressured to let her stay with us after she became homeless, and I'm questioning whether I'm being heartless for saying no. To give you some context, my mother-in-law has a history of creating drama. Leading up to our wedding, she accused my father of stealing from us during our stag and doe. At the wedding, she wore a very light pink jumpsuit that looked almost white, got heavily intoxicated, and went around the hotel banging on doors to keep the party going. While I was pregnant, she texted me to say I shouldn't use pregnancy as an excuse to be lazy, because my husband was doing laundry. At that time, we lived on the top floor of a triplex, and he didn't want me carrying heavy loads up multiple flights of stairs. Things got even more complicated when I was in labor with my daughter. She showed up uninvited at the hospital and waited until the baby was born. Afterward, she posted on social media claiming she wasn't allowed to hold her granddaughter, even though my husband hadn't held her yet and she never even asked. She also criticized me for not wanting to breastfeed long-term, despite the fact that I had breastfed for 3 months as planned. Her insults have been direct, too. She once called me an overeducated idiot and lashed out over minor issues, like offering us furniture and then accusing us of being ungrateful when we politely declined due to lack of space. When my son was born during COVID, I was seriously ill after the birth, and without asking, she told my husband she planned to stay with us for a week. When he said no, she took to social media again, claiming we were keeping her from her grandson. Over the years, my husband decided not to allow her to see our son until Christmas that year due to her behavior. A consistent issue has been her refusal to take accountability. She often portrays herself as the victim and believes that every conflict is someone else's fault. Additionally, she struggles with alcoholism, which has contributed to her strained relationships. We've tried to help her with her addiction, but ultimately, she needs to want the help. The final straw for me came on Mother's Day 2022 when she emailed me, saying she knew I didn't like her and told me not to believe my husband, claiming he was dishonest. At that time, she had blocked him because he refused to give her money. After that, I cut contact for my own mental health and haven't had a relationship with her since. Now, she has set fire to her apartment and was evicted. She had a chance to regain her housing if she dropped a lawsuit against the building, but she refused, believing she would win. Unfortunately, she lost the case and is now homeless, staying in a shelter. My husband wants to let her stay with us, but I have said no. I believe it would destroy our marriage. I wouldn't feel safe or comfortable in my own home. And based on her history, she wouldn't respect boundaries. I worry we would never be able to get her to leave and find her own place. Even her own daughter has refused to take her in. I feel empathy for her situation, but I also believe her homelessness is the result of long-term behavior, poor decisions, and a refusal to accept responsibility. I don't think it's fair to sacrifice my marriage, my mental health, or my children's stability to fix a situation she continues to create. So, am I the bad guy for refusing to let my mother-in-law stay with us?